Hi, this is Dr. Pam Van Arsdale, and it's great to be with you again today. Today, we are going to continue our discussion on breast cancer. It's our breast cancer part 3 video. Today's topic is fiber. A number of studies have shown that increasing the amount of fiber in our diets decreases the risk of breast cancer. Fiber deficiency might be the number one deficiency in the United States, the number one nutritional deficiency. It's estimated that only about 3% of Americans get the amount of fiber that they need in their diet. So we're going to talk a little bit today about ways to increase the amount of fiber in our diet. And so I have a 5 for fiber. We have 3 meals per day and potentially 2 snacks per day. So 5 opportunities for eating to increase our amount of fiber. And I just wanted to give you some strategies and tips for each one of those 5 eating opportunities throughout the day. Let's start with breakfast. Every morning for breakfast, I have a big bowl of oatmeal. Oatmeal contains about 4 grams of fiber. I put in a tablespoon of ground flaxseed. That contains 3 grams of fiber. I throw in a handful of walnuts and a handful of fresh blueberries, additional fiber there. So that's a great way to start the day with fiber. If you're not a fan of oatmeal or you just don't have time, perhaps a smoothie would be quicker and something that might work better for you. A smoothie starting with water, with a handful of a cup or two of fresh spinach, along with a lot of frozen berries. Raspberries are very high in fiber, and they also have ellagic acid, which is one of those phytochemicals that helps fight cancer. But any berry would be great, and you could add a little bit of pineapple, frozen pineapple for sweetness if you wanted. And then you could add your tablespoon of flaxseed to that berry and spinach smoothie. So that could be between 5 and 6 grams of fiber right there. So let's move on to talking about a snack. Dried prunes are a great source of fiber. So a dried fruit, which can be kind of high in sugar, so you have to watch that. But I just did want to mention to you prunes because they are so high in fiber. So that would be a nice mid-morning snack. Or really what I prefer is some fresh fruit. Things like apples. Apples have about 4 grams of fiber in them. You might want to make sure you leave the peel on. Try to get organic if you can, because the peel is really where the residue of the pesticides kind of hangs on. And the peel, importantly, has a component in it that is an estrogen synthase inhibitor, much like when we talked about before when we were talking about red wine and the skin of grapes. Red grapes has an estrogen synthase inhibitor, which is good because that dampens down the production of estrogen in our bodies, which fuels breast cancer. So another benefit, not just fiber, but other benefits as well to apples. Pears are even higher in fiber, about 6 grams of fiber in a fresh pear. Pears are one of my favorite fresh fruits. If you can get them in season and they're just right, just the right softness. When I was pregnant with my first daughter 28 years ago, I craved fresh pears, and I had a wonderful older gentleman who, when he came to see me as a dentist, he would bring me all of these fresh pears, and I've just had developed such an affinity for fresh pears ever since then. They're delicious also in salads, but just to eat a fresh pear is great. So a fresh fruit for a mid-morning snack, great idea. Moving on to lunch, perhaps a soup like a black bean soup or a lentil soup, something like that would be very high in fiber, or a green salad with lots of veggies or even fruits. Can add some nuts and seeds to that. Perhaps you could add a piece of whole grain toast with some guacamole or avocado mash on that. Whole grains are very high in fiber, and avocado, surprisingly, is very high in fiber. A half of an avocado has about 7 grams of fiber in it. Or if you're not a fan of avocado, you could just do a piece of whole grain toast and a little bit of almond butter on it. Almonds are one of the highest, of all nuts, have one of the highest contents of fiber. So that's a good nut for fiber content, which leads us into our afternoon snack. My favorite afternoon snack, which I think is really delicious, but also I didn't realize until I started adding up all the components, is also very high in fiber. It's a smoothie, a chocolate banana nut butter smoothie. And so I start with about a cup of plant milk. I like to use soy milk. You could use whatever you wanted. Add a couple tablespoons of almond butter, very high in fiber. Add a frozen banana, also high in fiber. You could add that tablespoon of flax seeds if you haven't had that already for the day, and then add a bit of unsweetened dark cocoa. I usually use a half a teaspoon. You could use a little bit more if you wanted it more chocolatey. It's quite delicious. It is just kind of like a chocolate shake, really, but could be up to around 10 grams in fiber for a very healthy snack. If you don't have access to something to make a smoothie and you're at work during the day and that's just not practical, maybe a handful of nuts. That's what my husband does. He works in a bank, and I send him a lot of nuts, and he has nuts for his snack every day. You do want to watch the salt content in those. I'm going to share with you on the recipe page of my website a delicious recipe for some spice nuts. So if you just want something to give it a little extra flavor, that might be a nice an alternative as well to just plain unsalted raw nuts. So we've now made it to dinner, and for dinner you could consider something like a whole wheat pasta, also high in fiber. There's also a lot of plant-based pastas now that have things like garbanzo bean pasta or lentil pasta, those kinds of things. You do have to be careful about cooking them. You want them a little undercooked so they don't get gummy. But those pastas have a lot of fiber in them. You could mix that with some marinara sauce, add in some veggies and maybe some sauteed mushrooms for a pasta primavera. Maybe have a whole grain roll to go along with that, maybe another green salad. So these are just a few ideas to help you increase the amount of fiber in your daily diet. I hope you've enjoyed learning a little bit more about fiber and its importance in helping to prevent cancer. And I look forward to sharing with you the final video in our series on reducing our risk of breast cancer the next time.